If you want to change the way you see yourself, you must start with one fundamental act: telling the truth. That means looking at yourself honestly, without excuses, without justifications, without the comforting lies that keep you exactly where you are. It's painful, and that's why so few people do it. But the truth, however harsh, contains the seeds of transformation. If you refuse to face it, you will stay the same, trapped in the patterns that have held you back for years. Most people construct a version of themselves that is easier to live with. They explain away their failures, blame circumstances, or convince themselves that things aren't as bad as they are. You might tell yourself that your job is fine, even though you know you are wasting your potential. You might say that your relationships are good enough, even though you avoid deep conversations because you fear what they might reveal. You might convince yourself that your bad habits aren't really a problem, even as they slowly erode your confidence and self-respect, but deep down you know. You know when you are lying to yourself. You feel it as a quiet discomfort, a nagging thought in the back of your mind that you push away because facing it would mean admitting that things need to change. The truth is relentless. It does not care about your feelings. It does not bend to your convenience. But it is also the only thing that will set you free. If you continue to deceive yourself, you will remain stagnant, repeating the same mistakes and wondering why nothing ever changes. But if you confront reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, you will finally have the clarity to move forward. That clarity is terrifying because it demands action. Once you see the truth, you can no longer pretend that you don't see it. And once you know what needs to be done, the burden of responsibility falls on you. So where do you start? You start by asking yourself the questions that you have been avoiding. What are you pretending not to know? Where are you failing? What areas of your life are in chaos because of your own actions or inactions? These are not comfortable questions, but they are necessary ones. Maybe you are out of shape, and it's not because of genetics or bad luck, but because you have been undisciplined with your habits. Maybe you are stuck in a job you hate, not because the world is unfair, but because you have been too afraid to pursue something better. Maybe your relationships are strained, not because other people are difficult, but because you haven't been honest or courageous enough to address the issues. Facing the truth is painful because it reveals the gap between who you are and who you could be. But that gap is not there to torment you. It is there to guide you. It shows you where you need to grow. It shows you where you need to act. People avoid the truth because they fear that it will make them feel worse about themselves. But the real danger is not the pain of truth. It is the slow, corrosive damage of self-deception. Living in denial does not protect you, it weakens you. Every lie you tell yourself makes you smaller, more fragile, more disconnected from reality. And reality always wins in the end. The moment you decide to face the truth, you take the first step toward real change. You move from being a passive victim of your circumstances to an active participant in your own life. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is merely reacting to the world and start seeing yourself as someone who can shape it. This shift is not just psychological, it is practical. When you acknowledge where you are weak, you can begin to strengthen yourself. When you admit where you have been lazy, you can start to build discipline. When you recognize where you have been dishonest, you can finally move toward integrity. None of this is easy. It is much easier to continue as you are, to find reasons why you can't change, to seek distractions that keep you from thinking too deeply. But if you do that, you will look back in 10 years and wonder why your life has not improved. The time will pass anyway. The only question is whether you will use it to become something more, or whether you will waste it maintaining an illusion that keeps you comfortable but unfulfilled. The truth is brutal, but it is also the foundation of transformation. You cannot build something strong on a foundation of lies. If you want to change, if you want to become someone you can respect, if you want a life that is meaningful, you must begin by looking at yourself as you truly are, No more excuses, no more self-deception. Face the truth. And then, armed with that truth, take the next step forward. You cannot navigate through life without a destination. If you do not aim for something greater, you will drift, pulled in every direction by whatever demands your attention in the moment. You will settle into habits that provide short-term comfort but long-term regret. You will wake up years from now wondering why nothing ever changed, why you never became the person you wanted to be. The reason is simple. You never set a target worth pursuing. A person without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. The waves of life push you around and you go wherever the current takes you, but you are not steering. And if you are not steering, then who is? The world? Other people? Circumstances? That is no way to live. If you do not take control of your direction, something else will. But when you choose to aim at something greater, you reclaim that control. You decide where you are going, and you begin the difficult, necessary work of getting there. So what does it mean to aim for something greater? It means choosing a goal that is bigger than you, something that challenges you, something that forces you to grow. It is not about seeking comfort or avoiding struggle. It is about pursuing something meaningful. And meaning is not found in the easy path. It is found in the pursuit of something that requires effort, sacrifice, and responsibility. Most people avoid setting ambitious goals because they are afraid of failure. They tell themselves that it is better not to try than to try and fall short. But what is the alternative? To live a life where nothing ever changes? To stay stuck in a cycle of mediocrity because you were too afraid to risk failing? That is not a life worth living. If you do not aim high, you will never know what you are capable of. And make no mistake, you are capable of far more than you think. The problem is that most people set their sights too low. They aim for what is easy, what is familiar, what guarantees success with minimal effort. But that kind of success is hollow. It does not challenge you, and therefore it does not change you. Real growth comes from striving for something beyond your current reach. It forces you to develop new skills, to cultivate discipline, to overcome obstacles that would have once stopped you. Aiming for something greater does not mean you will succeed right away. In fact, you will probably fail many times. But failure is not the opposite of success. It is a necessary part of it. Every failure teaches you something. Every setback forces you to adapt. Every mistake sharpens your understanding of what needs to be done. The only real failure is refusing to try at all. But aiming high is not just about external achievement. It is about becoming a better person in the process. The goal itself matters, but what matters more is who you become as you pursue it. When you aim for something great, you are forced to leave behind old habits, outdated beliefs, and weaknesses that no longer serve you. You become stronger, more disciplined, more capable. You develop character. And character is what ultimately determines the quality of your life. So where do you begin? You begin by asking yourself a simple but difficult question. What is worth aiming for? Not just what is easy, not just what others expect of you, but what truly matters. Maybe it is building a career that challenges and fulfills you. Maybe it is becoming a better parent, a better partner, a better friend. Maybe it is dedicating yourself to something that serves others, that makes the world a little better because you existed. Whatever it is, it must be something that pulls you forward, something that makes you want to wake up in the morning with a sense of purpose. And once you have a goal, commit to it. Do not just think about it. Do not just talk about it. Take action. Start small if you must, but start. Break it down into steps. Make progress every day, even if it is just a little. Discipline yourself to move forward even when you do not feel like it. The path will not always be clear. You will doubt yourself. You will feel like quitting. But if the goal is truly meaningful, then every challenge along the way is worth facing. There is no fulfillment in stagnation. There is no meaning in playing small. You must aim at something beyond yourself. You must choose a path that forces you to grow, to struggle, to become more than you are now. That is where you will find purpose. That is where you will find strength. That is where you will find a life that is worth living. You are not just one person. You are many potential versions of yourself, each competing for dominance. There is a part of you that is disciplined, strong, and courageous, and there is a part of you that is lazy, fearful, and weak. The version of yourself that you become is the result of which side you nurture. People like to believe they are inherently good, that they are purely victims of external circumstances, that all their flaws are simply the result of bad luck or unfair treatment. But this is not true. You are not just good. You are not just a victim. You are a complex being, capable of great things, but also capable of self-destruction. You have the potential for both strength and cowardice, discipline and indulgence, truth and deception. Which side of you wins depends entirely on what you choose to cultivate. This dual nature is not something to be ignored or denied. It is something to be understood. If you do not recognize the part of yourself that is weak, deceitful, and self-sabotaging, then it will control you without your awareness. People avoid thinking about their own flaws because it is painful. They want to believe that they are entirely good, that all their failures are someone else's fault. But that is a lie. You fail because there is a part of you that is comfortable with failure. You lie because there is a part of you that prefers the easy way out. You avoid responsibility because there is a part of you that is afraid of the weight that responsibility carries. The first step in mastering yourself is to acknowledge this reality. You are not perfect. You have weaknesses. You have impulses that, if left unchecked, will ruin you. But you also have a side that is strong, noble, and capable. The question is, which side are you feeding? Every decision you make either strengthens your higher nature or your lower nature. When you give in to laziness, when you lie, when you avoid responsibility, you are feeding the part of you that will destroy your potential. But when you act with discipline, when you tell the truth, when you take ownership of your life, you are feeding the part of you that will allow you to achieve something meaningful. It is important to understand that your lower nature is not just something external, something that exists outside of you. It is a part of you. This means that you cannot simply get rid of it. You cannot eliminate your flaws entirely, nor can you destroy your darker impulses. What you can do is integrate them, control them, and use them to your advantage. There is power in the parts of yourself that you might consider negative. Your aggression, if properly directed, can become determination. Your fear, if properly understood, can become wisdom. Your anger, if disciplined, can become a driving force for justice. The goal is not to suppress these aspects of yourself, but to refine them, to bring them under the control of your higher self so that they serve you rather than sabotage you. The danger lies in pretending that your weaknesses do not exist. People who refuse to acknowledge their flaws end up being controlled by them. The person who refuses to admit they are lazy will always find excuses for why they cannot succeed. The person who refuses to admit they are bitter will blame the world for their unhappiness. The person who refuses to admit they are weak will live in denial, avoiding every challenge that might expose their shortcomings. But those who are willing to see themselves honestly, who are willing to admit their flaws without self-deception, gain power, because once you see what is holding you back, you can do something about it. Recognizing your dual nature does not mean that you give in to your weaknesses. It means that you acknowledge them so that they no longer control you from the shadows. It means understanding that you have the capacity for both greatness and failure, and that your actions determine which path you take. There is no neutral ground. Every day, every moment, you are making choices that shape who you become. Are you choosing to strengthen your discipline, your honesty, your responsibility, or are you choosing to indulge in excuses, self-pity, and avoidance? The truth is, you are capable of far more than you think. You have within you the potential for great strength, intelligence, and integrity, but you also have within you the potential for self-destruction, deception, and weakness. Your life is the result of which side you cultivate. If you want to be strong, act strong. If you want to be disciplined, practice discipline. If you want to be someone you respect, make the choices that will earn your own respect. No one else can do this for you. No one else is responsible for which side of you wins. It is entirely in your hands. You must decide every day whether you will act as the person you admire or as the person you despise. And that decision, repeated over time, will determine the life you create for yourself. People often look at the gap between where they are and where they want to be and feel overwhelmed. They see the massive changes they need to make, the long journey ahead, and they freeze. They think, how can I possibly do all of this? That kind of thinking is paralyzing. But the truth is, you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to change your entire life overnight. You just have to start small. There is immense power in small actions. When you commit to small, consistent improvements, you set in motion a process of transformation that builds over time. The problem is that most people dismiss small actions because they seem insignificant. They believe that unless they make a huge leap, it isn't worth it. But this is a mistake. A small step in the right direction is always better than standing still. Think about the trajectory of an arrow. If you adjust its angle by just a few degrees before it is shot, it will land in a completely different place. Your life works the same way. A small adjustment today, one better habit, one better decision, can completely change where you end up years from now. The challenge is that small actions do not provide instant results. People want change to be fast. They want to see immediate transformation. But that's not how real, lasting improvement works. Consider someone who is out of shape and wants to get fit. If they set an unrealistic goal, saying they will exercise for 2 hours every day when they haven't worked out in years, they are setting themselves up for failure. The commitment is too large, too sudden. It demands too much change all at once. And when they inevitably fail to keep up, they become discouraged and quit. But what if instead they started small? What if they simply did 5 push-ups a day? 5 push-ups are easy. They take almost no time. They don't seem like they matter. But if that person does 5 push-ups a day for a week, then increases it to 10, then 20, then adds other exercises, suddenly, after a few months, they are in better shape than they ever imagined. The same principle applies to every area of life. If your finances are a mess, you don't need to make $1 million overnight. You just need to start by saving a small amount. If your relationships are strained, you don't need to solve everything at once. You just need to make a small effort to communicate better today. If you lack discipline, you don't need to overhaul your entire routine. You just need to commit to waking up 5 minutes earlier and sticking to it. Small actions create momentum, and momentum is what drives real change. Another reason small actions are so powerful is that they shift your identity. Every time you take even a tiny step in the right direction, you reinforce the idea that you are the kind of person who is capable of change. A person who reads 1 page of a book every day becomes someone who values learning. A person who meditates for 1 minute daily becomes someone who prioritizes mental clarity. A person who chooses to tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable becomes someone who values honesty. Change is not just about what you do, it's about who you become. And who you become is shaped by the small actions you take every day. The difficulty is that small actions require patience. You will not see results immediately, and that can be frustrating. You might feel like your efforts are pointless, like nothing is changing. But just because you cannot see the effects right away does not mean they are not happening. Imagine a block of ice sitting in a room that is slowly warming. At first, the temperature rises from 25 dF to 26 dF to 27 dF, and nothing happens. The ice remains frozen. But then, at 32 dGF, something shifts. The ice begins to melt. It was not that the last degree alone caused the change. It was the accumulation of all the previous degrees. Your small actions work the same way. This is why consistency is more important than intensity. A massive effort that lasts for a week and then stops is useless compared to a small effort that is repeated daily. If you want to master a skill, practice it a little every day. If you want to improve your relationships, show small acts of kindness consistently. If you want to change your mindset, challenge your negative thoughts one by one. What you do daily matters far more than what you do occasionally. But none of this works if you don't start. Many people wait for the perfect time to begin. They tell themselves they will change when they feel ready, when circumstances improve, when they have more energy or motivation. But waiting is just another form of avoidance. There is no perfect time, there is only now. And now is always the right time to take one small step. If you want to change your life, do not focus on the enormity of the task. Focus on what you can do today, right now, that moves you even slightly closer to where you want to be. It doesn't matter if the step is tiny. What matters is that you take it. Because once you start, once you prove to yourself that you can act, you will realize that momentum is on your side. And small steps taken consistently lead to extraordinary results. Life is difficult. It is filled with suffering, with challenges, with unfairness, and with hardship. But despite all of this, there is one undeniable truth. You are responsible for what happens next. No matter where you are in life, no matter what has happened to you, you have the power to take control and move forward. That begins with taking responsibility. Responsibility is not just about doing what is expected of you. It is about understanding that your life, your successes, your failures, your happiness, your suffering is largely within your control. It is tempting to blame others when things go wrong. It is easy to point at society, at your upbringing, at bad luck, at circumstances beyond your control. But blaming others, no matter how justified it may feel, does nothing to change your situation. It only keeps you stuck. Taking responsibility means accepting that even if you are not at fault for everything that has happened to you, it is still your job to deal with it. Maybe you were raised in a difficult environment. Maybe you were treated unfairly. Maybe you faced hardships that others did not. These things are real and they matter, but they do not absolve you of the responsibility to improve your life. No one else is coming to save you. No one else will fix everything for you. If you do not take responsibility, no one will do it for you. People who refuse to take responsibility remain trapped. They become bitter. They dwell on what should have been instead of focusing on what could be. They repeat the same mistakes because they refuse to admit that their choices have consequences. They want someone else to blame because blaming others is easier than admitting that they are capable of more. But when you refuse responsibility, you also refuse power. The moment you acknowledge that your choices matter, that your actions shape your future, you reclaim control. Taking responsibility means telling yourself the truth, even when it is painful. If your life is not what you want it to be, then there is something you are doing or failing to do that is contributing to the problem. Maybe you are not working as hard as you could. Maybe you are avoiding difficult conversations. Maybe you are indulging in bad habits that keep you stuck. This is not easy to admit, but the alternative, living in denial, pretending that you are powerless, is far worse. Responsibility is not just about fixing your own life. It is also about stepping up and carrying the burdens that others rely on you to bear. A responsible person does not run from difficulty. They do not make excuses. They do not wait for someone else to solve the problem. They see what needs to be done and they do it. If something is broken, they fix it. If someone needs help, they own up to it and correct it. This is what separates a strong, competent person from someone who remains weak. Of course, responsibility is heavy. It requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. Many people reject responsibility because they are afraid of failure. They think, what if I try and I don't succeed? But this is the wrong question. The real question is, what happens if I don't try at all? The answer is simple. Nothing. Nothing changes. Nothing improves. The weight of regret becomes heavier than the weight of responsibility ever could be. Taking responsibility also means setting high standards for yourself. It means deciding that you will not be the kind of person who makes excuses, who avoids hard work, who lets life happen to them instead of shaping it. It means making the choice every single day to act with integrity, to pursue your goals with effort, to handle your relationships with care, to take ownership of your actions. It means choosing to be someone that others can rely on. And most importantly, it means becoming someone you can rely on. So where do you begin? You begin by looking at your own life honestly. Identify where you have been making excuses. Identify what problems you have been avoiding. Identify what areas of your life are not as they should be. And then take action. Even if it is just a small step, you cannot change everything overnight, but you can start. And once you start, you will realize that you are far more capable than you ever imagined. Taking responsibility is not a burden, it is a privilege. It is the path to strength, to confidence, to success. It is what allows you to build a meaningful life, to be proud of who you are, to contribute something valuable to the world. And it all begins with a choice. Will you take ownership of your life, or will you leave it in the hands of others? The answer to that question will determine everything. Every person has an ideal version of themselves. Someone stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more courageous. You have a vision, however faint, of the kind of person you could be if you truly lived up to your potential. The question is, are you moving toward that person, or are you staying the same? Too many people go through life without considering what kind of person they are becoming. They react to circumstances, drift through their days, and avoid responsibility for shaping their own character. But you are not just something that happens. You are something that is created. You have the ability to shape yourself, to refine your thoughts and actions, to become someone you admire. To become someone you admire, you must first define what that means. Who do you respect? What qualities do they have? Are they disciplined? Honest, strong? Do they face their fears instead of running from them? Do they take responsibility instead of making excuses? If you do not take the time to answer these questions, you will never have a clear vision of who you should strive to be. Once you have that vision, the next step is to act accordingly. The truth is, you are already choosing who you become every day. Every decision you make, how you spend your time, how you treat others, how you respond to challenges, either moves you closer to or further away from the person you want to be. There is no neutral ground. You are either growing or stagnating. One of the most common reasons people fail to become their ideal selves is that they give in to their worst instincts. They allow laziness, fear, and insecurity to dictate their actions. They know what they should do, but they avoid it. They know they should speak the truth, but they stay silent. They know they should work hard, but they procrastinate. Every time you avoid what you know is right, you weaken your character. Every time you act with discipline and courage, you strengthen it. Becoming someone you admire is not about grand gestures or sudden transformations. It is about the small choices you make consistently. It is about showing up day after day as a person who strives for something higher. It is about choosing to do the difficult thing when the easy path is available. It is about choosing honesty when lying would be more convenient, choosing discipline when indulgence is tempting, choosing responsibility when avoidance would feel better in the short term. Another key to becoming someone you admire is to stop measuring yourself against others. The only real competition you have is with your past self. The person you should aim to surpass is the person you were yesterday. This is not about comparing yourself to someone who has had different circumstances, advantages, or struggles. It is about taking full responsibility for improving yourself, even if only by a small amount each day. At the same time, you must be brutally honest with yourself. Do not make excuses for your failures. Do not justify your weaknesses. Do not tell yourself comforting lies about why you are not living up to your potential. The moment you start making excuses, You give away your power to improve. True self-respect comes from facing reality, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Many people seek admiration from others while ignoring the more important goal, earning admiration from themselves. External validation is fleeting and unreliable. One day people may praise you and the next they may forget you. But if you build a life based on principles you truly respect, you will never have to rely on others to feel a sense of worth. You will know deep down that you are acting in alignment with your highest values, and that is what truly matters. This journey is not easy. There will be moments when you fail, when you fall short of your own expectations, when you struggle to live up to your ideals. But failure is not the enemy, giving up is. The person you admire is not someone who never fails. They are someone who refuses to let failure define them. They get back up. They learn, they keep going. That is what separates those who grow from those who remain stuck.